We're live.
Awesome.
Thank you. It's early.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. Get a start on the day.
Yeah, no, it's I think I think I'm a little biased in like my early mornings just because I got used to it from swimming. But every time I wake up, I'm like, this sucks. But then once I'm like actually bed and doing stuff, I just feel so much better.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. You have a much longer day. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. Cool. Well, yeah, thank you again. We first met, actually, I think this will be like a quick funny story, in Miami.
Yeah.
At Crema at a coffee shop. And I saw the good morning sticker on your phone.
Yeah.
The GM sticker. And I was like, are you in crypto? And yeah, we just kind of kicked it off from there, but kind of wild.
Yeah, no, it was kind of funny. That was the first time, like, yeah. And yeah, GM's like the crypto mantra. Yeah. And I had it. I'm still shocked at how we got that domain.
Yeah.
But
is it just GM.com?
GM.xyz.
Okay.
So, which is like the crypto extension.
Nice.
Subdomain. But yeah, no, that was fun. And then like, yeah, it's great meeting you. It's so cool to have so many like crypto people in Miami. It's great.
Yeah. No, I keep showing Miami on all these podcasts selfishly. But also I just enjoy it because, as you know, like being on the computer the vast majority of the day, being able to step outside and get that sunshine, like to me just makes me feel so much better.
Yeah, it's honestly huge, right? Like, especially in the wintertime, right? Like in winter, like how often do you go outside, right? It kind of affects your whole mood, your energy levels, probably your health too.
Oh yeah.
And like, I'd make a point to go for a walk every day.
That's awesome.
Around Brickell Key. That was my walking spot.
Well, I haven't been back to New York in a while, but I like the energy here. It's been good. It's been nice. But so maybe we could just like start with like a brief like background on you, and then like maybe dive into how you got into crypto.
Sure. Yeah. So I studied finance and computer science in college, and then I was debating to go.
And your name is?
My name's Mike McGuiness.
Cool.
Yeah, and I say finance and computer science in college.
Uh-huh.
And I was debating, do I want to go like the Silicon Valley route or you want to go like the Wall Street route?
Yeah.
And I ended up getting an internship at this hedge fund and working at this long short credit hedge fund.
Okay.
And I was working there for 4 years. That's actually when I discovered crypto, specifically Bitcoin. I found it interesting from a macroeconomics perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I was there for 4 years. Really all in on Bitcoin. I was kind of like, hate to say it. It pains me to say this, but I was like a Bitcoin maxi. I just didn't see like I saw like the store value use case, and I didn't really see how value would accrue to these other tokens and like what that would look like.
Yeah.
So totally separately, I had no intention of going into crypto and working in crypto. I wanted to kind of go into like Web2 tech and work as a software engineer in product. So I quit my hedge fund job about 4 years into it and got back into programming. So I went to go get my MBA. I got back into programming, dropped out after my first year at business school and joined this startup called Common Stock, which is great. I worked there as a software engineer for a year and got to see how product processes are run, how you write production grade code, because it's totally different from, from your side project code.
Yeah.
So that was great. And then left that job in September to start GM with my brother, who's been a software engineer his whole life.
It's you and your brother?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah.
That's sick.
Yeah. So yeah, Matt, he's my younger brother. So he just turned 26 in January. So he's pretty young.
Okay.
I'm 28. And he's always been super computer. He's actually kind of the reason I was able to ramp up so fast on programming, because when I was getting back into programming, the best way to do it is to do a side project. If you're trying to like learn how to code, you do a side project.
Yeah.
And he was doing it with me. And there's nothing like a brother to tell you like your code sucks, like rewrite this, like
that brutal honesty that only a brother can give you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's great. And then he was into crypto as well, and we were kind of talking about ideas. We knew we wanted to do like a startup together. Our skill sets are super complementary. people have been talking about decentralized social media for years, right? Like really smart people like Balaji Srinivasan, Naval Ravikant. Nobody's built a good one.
Yeah.
And we're like, somebody's going to build this eventually. Why not us?
That's sick. No, big fans of Balaji and Naval, and definitely on the social media aspect. So yeah, maybe from here, go a little bit like deeper into like what you're building, like the inspiration behind it, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. So what we want to build and what we're building is a user-owned, decentralized, crypto-native social network.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and there's three main problems that we're focused on. The first, so there's two really big social media problems. One is that most social media networks, like Twitter, Reddit, Facebook, is that they don't share the value they capture with the users that create that value. Yeah. Right. So Chris Dixon had a great thread on this called "Your Take Rate is My Opportunity."
Yeah.
Right. Like that was a great thread, and it kind of explains it really well. Is that right? Like YouTube is actually better because they do reward the creators.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific economics.
No. I would agree. I mean, just the fact that YouTube has become so big, I think is definitely in part because they reward creators so much more heavily than any other platform. But it would be interesting to see if you or anybody can continue to give more of that to the users, how those dynamics would continue to shift.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Reddit's the perfect example, right? The person who created Wall Street Bets, which has 10 million members and probably more now. The last time I checked, there's 10 million members in that Wall Street Bets subreddit. Reddit didn't compensate them, right? Like, so they didn't see anything for all like kind of like, and they probably contributed like millions of dollars of advertising revenue just from that one subreddit.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that they weren't able to capture it, right? So that's the one major problem that we're focused on. The other problem that we're focused on is all these tech giants have data monopolies, right? So you have a handful of privately owned like US tech companies that own the social media data of billions of people around the world. And it just seems kind of problematic, right? Because it really stifles innovation. It's really hard to build a competitive social media experience if you don't have that data, right?
100%.
So we want to give everybody read and write access to that data. We want to decentralize it and give people read and write access. And then ideally, anybody anywhere in the world can build a competitive social media application.
Okay. So are you starting off with the protocol and also building the front end, or are you just focusing on one part of that stack?
Yeah, so that actually brings to the third problem we're solving.
Okay.
The third problem we're solving is, right, you need a way to bootstrap a network and get content in there and get users and get attention in there.
Yeah.
So the way we're doing it is, so you have two approaches. One is kind of like the approach that DSO, which is formerly BitClout,
yep.
That they're taking, where they're building their own L1 blockchain, and they're saying, hey, come build on top of us. And I see some benefits to that because they say, oh, like if you build on top of us, then everybody will be able to kind of benefit from like the shared data, right? And then, so that's the approach. And then Lens Protocol is kind of taking it, which is like the Aave team. They're taking a similar approach where they're kind of building their own, they're focused on a decentralized backend, right? And they want to build kind of like technical architecture to do that. The approach we're taking is we're taking a utility approach first, because our view is, like, if you don't build something useful, then the decentralization aspect doesn't really matter.
100%. And I mean, I think like back in the day, 0x kind of created a decentralized trading protocol, but the protocol itself, they ultimately did not build the UI component for a while. And I think that kind of shot themselves in the foot because they're expecting some other people to also build on top of the protocol. So I like that you guys are starting with like the application first.
Yeah, and then there's a main problem that we're going after, which is that Web3 communities are using Discord as their primary communication platform.
Yeah.
And there's a few issues with Discord, right? Like, Discord is social gaming software built for gaming, right? And it wasn't built for massive communities with tens of thousands of people, and people are stitching together a ton of bots to kind of work around the limitations of that platform, right? You have like Collabland, you have SourceCred, you have Sesh, you have Dino, right? And people are stitching. You have to be like the spot wizard to kind of create like a community that works for a setup that works for your community, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, like that's like a great place to start. Is you could kind of create this global social infrastructure by stitching together a ton of communities. So
I love that.
Yeah. So if you look at the site, a lot of the inspiration is from Reddit and Discord because we think that's kind of like the subreddit is kind of like a community, right? And then also there's some things that we like about Discord, right? Like they organize content really well, whereas Reddit's kind of like one ginormous feed and it's hard to find content and stuff.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I like the approach. I think it was even interesting with Discord, they were trying to implement like some of the like more Web3 native stuff like ETH addresses. But they got so much pushback on Twitter after they announced it that I think they bailed on it. Kind of like the innovator's dilemma for Web2 companies. They just can't build it because their communities don't want it.
That was kind of crazy. They walked it back in like 48 hours,
I know.
Maybe less.
Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah. And yes, I personally thought a wallet integration and kind of basic token gating would have been like table stakes thing to add.
I agree.
And it sounds like their user base didn't want it, right? So they can't. I don't know if there was as much pushback to the Twitter NFT PFP.
I was so surprised that Twitter did that overall. I don't know if that like happened after. Well, it did happen after Jack left.
Yeah,
Jack's much more focused on the Bitcoin stuff.
It happened like a week.
I know. They shipped that pretty fast.
Yeah,
they had to be working on that, and then they're like, "All right, Jack's gone. Let's ship."
Exactly.
But yeah, no, the Twitter integrations with the NFT have been super interesting. I'm surprised they did it, but then I'm also a lot of people in the Web3 community have, but I haven't seen anything outside of just kind of like verifying that like you have that NFT. But I'm curious to see over time what they continue to do with it. Or I guess like, where do you think they should take it? Or even better question, what would you like to kind of build into GM that utilizes NFTs, and how do you see that going?
Yeah, I mean, a natural extension of what they built is just showcasing the rest of your NFT portfolio, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere on your profile and being able to click into those NFTs. I don't think you could do this on Twitter. You could do this on GM.
Okay.
Just click on an NFT. So if you own a CryptoPunk and I click on that NFT, I can see all the people on the platform who also own that CryptoPunk, right? So it's like a great way to kind of like, hey, we have something in common and I probably want to follow this, right? Like Bored Apes probably exemplify this pretty well, like the ape follow ape mantra.
Nice. How are you scraping that data?
We're using OpenSea's API,
okay.
Right? So that's where a lot of people, right? Like MetaMask uses it, and then there's like the main criticism of I don't know if you've read Marley Moxenspike's essay, the kind of the founder of Signal.
He wrote a critique. Did, but I can't remember it by paragraph. Go into it.
Yeah, no, he just wrote like a critique of how kind of. I don't know if I read a while ago. I don't know if it's crypto technology or information technology in general.
Yeah.
Generally tends to trend towards centralizing because it's easier, right? Like most people just don't want to run their own servers and run their own nodes and stuff like that. So what you end up with is a bunch of people, right? Like a bunch of centralized entities like Infura, MetaMask using OpenSea's API, and a bunch of issues like that just because it's easier.
Yeah.
And it seemed like a valid critique to me. But then you had really smart people like Vitalik, and there's this guy at MetaMask who actually wrote like a great essay responding to that. Basically saying that crypto gives you the right to exit, right? And it maintains those properties. And over time, we're kind of doing this because people are saying we're starting out like this because it's just easier to bootstrap it, but over time it'll be more decentralized, right? Like, so I don't know. I thought both points were kind of valid.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm super interested in like all the different scaling solutions and how it all play out over, I don't know, the next coming years. I really like looking at like Dune analytics and like checking out the like user stats. And I think like most people would be surprised that like on some of the most popular like DeFi dApps, there's only a couple 100,000 users. OpenSea has 1 million on, I think, ETH L1, and then maybe 1 million, I think, on Polygon. But for the amount of volume that they do, I thought it would be much higher. But I'm super stoked just to get like the next 10 million, 100 million, and then like 1 billion people.
Yeah, I mean, you have Coinbase launching their NFT marketplace, so that will both like decentralize it and then also kind of expand it to a broader use case where you can kind of buy an NFT with a credit card rather than setting up a MetaMask and going through all that.
Yeah.
Although that is fun, like I would encourage people to do that rather than just buy an NFT with it.
So do you think like there will be a kind of like hybrid in the future, kind of with like the Web2 model and like that payment infrastructure, or do you think it will be more Web3 native in the sense that like everybody has to understand like private key management and like sign transactions, or like some type of hybrid like in the next couple of years?
Yeah, that's a really tough question. I mean, people are debating that, right? That's something we've thought about a lot because, right, at GM you sign in with your Ethereum wallet,
okay,
right? And you have to sign a transaction that basically proves that you're the owner of that wallet, and then we'll create an account for you that owns that, right? Like, and that's the eventual path to kind of owning your data, right? So, we kind of like it because it just makes the platform solely crypto native people, which is kind of good when you're starting out. Like, you kind of want to start out small and then expand from there.
For sure.
But I don't know. We're talking about like, would we eventually build in like a Web2 sign-in flow, or will wallet software just get better? And I tend to think that like as more and more really talented Web2 people, it's only it's one directional flow of talent from Web2 to Web3, and you're getting all these great designers, great engineers, and I'm guessing that the wallet experience will be just so much better that where you don't even really realize what you're doing. Like, it's just very intuitive. Oh, like sign transaction, like easy.
Yeah.
Like,
no, 100%.
What do you think?
I lean much more towards the latter, with like everybody will learn like the basic private key under management stuff. I think that just gives you, like you said, kind of like the sovereignty of being able to own your own data. And then if everything is within your wallet, then I don't know. I mean, it just gives like a unique model because you own everything in that wallet and you're just signing with your private key, which I think is like super interesting. But right now, just that private key management is a little bit hard. And then also, depending on different chains, like the gas fees are also a little bit complex. So I think over time, as both of those get more streamlined in the sense of just like customer usability, and then also just safety, because some of it's like I try to get my friends to like use DeFi in the DeFi summer, and like gas fees were just too high and they didn't want to do it. And then I tried to get my friends to mint on Solana NFTs, and they did, but then they like got into a Discord and rugged themselves and gave away their private key.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I think over time, as like all these things like become easier, I'm excited for like what it will become. But yeah, there's still a lot of work to do.
Yeah. No, the safety thing's a massive problem, especially in Discord, right? Like I get a DM every single day of some scam, right? And if you're in crypto, you're kind of conditioned to expect that, right? But like if you put yourself in the shoes of a new user, it's like, oh, Larva Labs just DM'd me offering me four free crypto punks. Yeah. Yeah. Let me give them my private keys, right? Like, so there's a lot of issues with that, right? And it's really hard. We're actually, moderation is like a major focus of GM, and like how we kind of like want to differentiate ourselves from Discord, right? Like it'd be nice like if you could have, right, an ENS subdomain, right? So it's, I don't know, Logan.larvalabs.eth, right? And then you know that and it's verified, and then you know that person works for Larva Labs. You could go look at their NFT portfolios. You could see who follows them. all their past posts, right? Like there's
That's
just
cool.
so much more context versus Discord where I have nothing to work with. I just see like their
random DM.
Yeah, I just see what they put in their bio, and anybody can put anything in their bio.
No, that'd be super cool. Being able to verify all of that on chain kind of gives you that unique ability. That's awesome. On the content moderation stuff, one of the things that I've been like not thinking about too much, but I'm semi-interested in, if you have like a fully decentralized media, it's unique in the sense that it is in the control of the users. And we've seen like with Facebook and Instagram and Twitter, like people get kicked off for various reasons. If it's fully decentralized, depending on, how it's built, that like content moderation could be difficult, even if you don't like what people are saying. Have you guys kind of thought about like GM and like the pros and cons of totally decentralized social media?
Yeah, so this is a really like important question to get right? And I'm sure my views on this will change over time, but the way we're thinking about it right now is if you have a decentralized data layer, right, and anybody can read and write to that data layer, yes, people could put illegal content, right, content that incites violence and content that you would rather not be shared. Mm-hmm. But I think the way around this is that if you have a proliferation of clients built on top of that, right? And then each of those clients can take their own view of what should be censored and not censored, right? And then they could fork, and then people could kind of vote and go with the client that aligns with their own value system. And then regulatory bodies can actually go after if a client allows illegal content, the regulatory bodies in that jurisdiction could go after those clients.
That totally makes sense. So it's the decentralized backend, and then you have multiple different front ends kind of highlighting different points or different content from that backend infrastructure.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's a hope. And then the important thing to maintain is kind of give people the right to exit and the right to fork, right? So if I disagree with the handful of product managers at Twitter making decisions about what the entire world sees, I can kind of build my own version of Twitter that doesn't censor, or maybe censors more, right? Like maybe you create one for parents, right? And that's safe that. And you could kind of have an expression of different views and value systems.
Nice.
Rather than just a few tech executives in Silicon Valley deciding what the whole world should and should not see.
I like that. That'd be cool. No, very cool. Maybe so what kind of inspired, I can't remember if we touched upon this, like the social media aspect of like GM. Like, did you know you guys wanted to build the social aspect from the beginning?
Yes. Yes. It's just kind of been, I don't know. I think it's been top of mind for a lot of people, right? Like, you had some things going on with the existing tech oligarchs who kind of control all this data, like those initial problems that I outlined, right? Like those aren't my ideas. I didn't like uniquely identify them, but people have been talking about them for years. And particularly like Velocity has put forth a lot of great ideas on like what could happen if you kind of put the data on chain and like you kind of had proof that what was said was actually true, and like you couldn't change it after the fact. And then and then also like some of the benefits that could arise from giving everybody read and write access, where you could have this proliferation of clients on top of it. And it's honestly like such a massive use case. And I felt very, very strongly, like my brother and I were just talking about this, like social media is not going to look like it looks today in 10 years, right? And we felt pretty confident on that. And like somebody's going to build a better version. But it seems like a massive problem that like impacts the entire world, really. It's like, and I kind of sympathize with, I don't know, like people paying Mark Zuckerberg, for example, to be a really big guy. But if you listen to, he did a great podcast recently with Lex Friedman.
I saw that.
Yeah. He's facing some really, really hard problems. I don't think he's a bad guy. He's just facing like impossible problems. And like there's one time where he kind of turned the question on Lex, he's like, what would you do if you were in my shoes? And Lex like didn't really have like a great response, right? Because these are really, really hard questions, right? So
yeah, no, yeah, social is hard. I think social is hard just because humans are hard.
yeah.
And inherently pretty complex. And all that's just continued to be surfaced back online. Yeah.
But these are like massively, right? They're complex problems and they're very important problems. And that's why I don't think you could have that kind of data monopoly, right? Like, because once you get rid of that data monopoly, then great ideas on how to solve these problems could come from anywhere, right? Like you could imagine, like, I don't know, the best machine learning researchers kind of coming up with an API that a moderation API or something for labeling content, right? That everybody could build into their application. And you can't really have this kind of decentralized approach. And like, right, like the way I imagine it happening is people build these kind of building blocks that other people can use to build their own clients. And you could have this kind of whole new innovation cycle in the space where you haven't really seen any innovation, right? Like, I mean, you've seen Facebook's done a ton with kind of like AI stuff, but like they're still using a very outdated business model of ads, right? Like an ads-based business model, which I personally think fundamentally misaligns the incentives of the network with the users.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so in Web3 with like users owning their own data, do you feel like there is a good business model at the moment in the Web3 stack?
Yeah, there's a bunch of things we could do, right? Like, because you're so close to like users' wallets, you can like enable different transactions, right? So if I see, right, I can see your entire NFT collection on your profile. A natural feature to build would be the ability to kind of bid on that, right? And then instead of the 2.5% transaction fee going to OpenSea, it would go to maybe it'd be split between GM and the community treasury, right? Like communities could launch their own exchanges within their community pages, right? So like you could do that. You could do paid DMs, which is the original like earn.com idea. Right. So, right. If I'm a person with 1 million followers on Twitter, there's no way I could respond to every DM that I get, like, even if I wanted to. So you could make like a rule where only people with assets I own can DM me, or the people I follow, or you could pay $10 of ETH to DM me. Right. And like, there's a lot of like opportunities to build kind of stuff like that into the platform.
That totally makes sense. How, maybe going a little bit deeper into GM, you mentioned the treasuries. How do treasuries work, and kind of how are communities like utilize their form in GM?
Yeah, so right now we kind of do like a waitlist process, right? So, or an application process where people, and it's very informal, people will just say, hey, like I really want to launch this community for, we're currently on Discord, or we're currently on Telegram. We'd like to move it over to GM, and we kind of just set them up. And it's like, all right, it has to be a wallet that is the owner of that community right now. Okay. So we'll set them up, and it's like, whose wallet should we use? Ideally, a community would be owned not just by one person, but by a group of people, right? So maybe you could do a multi-sig, right? And that multi-sig would be the owner, right? Okay. So right now, a wallet address is. And when I say owner, I basically just mean super admin privileges. So the main thing that you can do is you can just appoint who else is an admin, add and remove other admins. Okay. Yeah, and but yeah, that's how we see it played out.
Nice. And then how do like the treasuries kind of like intertwine within that? Like if you're an admin, do you just get treasury access for a specific community or your community?
So the treasury would kind of be like the wallet, right? Like, so like so as part of the community settings, they just, right? Like, for example, let's just say we had community NFT exchanges, right? And you are, you're the Yuga Labs community, right? And you have kind of all these listings, and then you could set where should the community's portion of the proceeds go to, right? Like the community fee go to. That makes sense. And then you just put a wallet in there, and then the funds would be directed to that. Nice.
That's awesome. And then that community can utilize that in the real world and digital world, and continue to grow and expand their communities.
Yeah, exactly. Nice. Like, right. Like Yuga Labs probably isn't the best because they're like $1 billion company, but like a good example would be kind of like Zen NFT. I don't know if you follow them, but they create like these awesome bonsai NFTs I really like.
Nice.
Yeah, but they're like a smaller community, and they generate all the attention to the OpenSea page. Like, why should OpenSea capture that revenue?
Yeah.
Why not them? And they could just redirect people to the Zen NFT exchange on GM, right? And then have those proceeds go to their treasury wallet instead of the OpenSea wallet.
That's awesome. No, that's very cool. Are there any like other exciting things specifically that like are upcoming on GM, or that you're like currently working on or are starting to see traction that you're like, this is cool?
Yeah, so a few things. One, we just shipped a major redesign, and
Congrats.
Yeah, thanks. We just shipped that a week ago today, and it's been noticeable, the change in kind of sentiment, and people are excited about it. And the value proposition, like, there's a few major improvements over Discord, but like the major one is that if you go to a Discord server after a week, right, there's no way to get caught up. Content just gets lost, and you could have the best discussion ever in Discord with, I don't know, 20 other community members. But after a week, it's basically gone forever, right? Like, there's no way, search isn't that great. There's no sense of content ordering. Everything's just chronological. Yeah. And it's really, really hard. And then also, the other main benefit is we have everything in one feed now from all of your communities. So if you're in 50 communities, you'll see the top things from each of those communities in a single feed. Whereas if you think about Discord, there's, right, if I'm in 50 Discord servers and each Discord server has 20 channels, that's 1,000 places I have to check every morning just to stay up to date on my communities, which is impossible.
I have a lot of them muted now.
Yeah, well, I keep everything muted except for the GM Discord, right?
Yeah.
And we've actually almost moved entirely. So Discord's great for like internal communication, right? Like chat, that's where our team kind of chats. But for public communication and engaging with your community and soliciting feedback from thousands of people, we personally think like the forum style content primitive is better for that. So that was that was our major redesign, which kind of really highlighted a lot those value proposition. And the major things that we're working on now is we should have a mobile app out in like the next month or two.
You guys are creating your own app?
Yeah, we're gonna do an iOS native iOS and Android clients. So that's been good.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, and the other thing that we want to do is we want to grant community-based roles. Like, so kind of like if you're familiar with Collabland, basically what we're going to do is you can assign roles within a community.
Okay.
Based on either manually, right? Like, I could assign you a moderator role, or I could assign a role to, if I'm the Bankless DAO community, I can assign a role to anybody who owns 10,000 bank tokens. And then you could give based on those roles, you could give certain permissions to within your community, right? You could give them access to certain content, certain writing privileges, like maybe people who own these get to post, and then everybody else has to kind of like work their way up through the comments, right? So, and because we have these things called topics, which are kind of like Discord channels, but they're not as siloed because they all flow into one main community feed. You could give read and write access to certain topics based on the community, the roles, right? So token-based roles is another major thing. And then we want to do chat topics, right? So this topics, it's hard to explain if you don't have it in front of you, if you've never used it, but like topics is kind of like a Discord channel, but it kind of flows into a main feed. So it's Reddit style based. And then, but you could do different things. You could change it. What we want to allow is like, you could change the content primitive of that topic. So right now it's forum style, right? Where you have a post and you have threaded comments below it. But you can imagine creating a chat topic, right? Where it's just like a Discord channel and chat room. And then you could kind of grant certain privileges to that based on the roles. And then really after that, right now we're more of a complement to Discord, where what we're seeing is people moving over certain conversations, mainly conversations that they don't want lost after a week, right? They're moving those over to GM. Okay. And then once we have chat and a mobile app, there's really no reason to not move everything over.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So those are like the three main things. And then we want to support other chains as well, right? So we want to support Solana, Terra, L2s, right? Like Arbitrum, Optimism. We just want to get the core product right first. And it's easy enough, like Ethereum, most people in crypto have Ethereum wallets. So we started off with Ethereum, and that's where like a lot of like the NFT and ERC20 token activity happens. Not as much anymore. Like Solana and like Terra have been doing a great job, but we'd like to integrate other chains and other L2s into the platform so that like if you sign in, right, you can link your Solana wallet, you can link your Terra wallet, and all your NFTs from all those wallets will show up on your profile.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So those are like the 3 or 4 things that we're that's coming over the next few months. Yeah, it's a lot, and it's like a pretty small team. So we have Matt here, who's my brother. We have Grant, who's a founding engineer who actually worked with me at Common Stock.
Okay.
We worked together. He was my boss there. He was like, yeah,
it has to kind of feel good to hire your boss.
No, I mean, like he's like one of the most talented engineers I've ever met. So I was like thrilled when he like was joining us. So yeah, and everybody has like a pretty good product sense. Which is extremely helpful because we don't have like a head of product. We all kind of make decisions about product together. We have this process called GM improvement proposals, kind of like Ethereum improvement proposals. Like we call them GIPs instead of EIP.
Okay, nice.
And we'll basically good ideas can come from anywhere is like something we believe. So people, if you have a feature idea or something that you want to change about the platform, you kind of write a proposal. Like, what's your motivation for this? What's the specification? What's like the rationale and the pros and cons? And then write it up, and then we'll say, hey, this is ready for comments. And then we'll go through and comment. We've moved almost totally to asynchronous communication. It's just so much more effective than what we were finding is like we were be on meetings, and then usually like the most persuasive or best talker would win over what features we should implement next, right?
Yeah.
And that's not the optimal outcome.
Yeah.
So we've moved over to this asynchronous process, and it's been working really great.
That's awesome. No, I really like the writing culture, or what writing forces you to articulate. I feel like I have found that one, it exposes the gaps in my thinking, but then also, as you said, people can be persuasive, but if you're forced to articulate it and then share it, it's not like someone can just kind of like filibuster like someone else for like talking time. So I definitely like the writing. That's awesome that it's working.
Paul Graham actually had a great essay on this, I think like a month ago. But yeah, he argued that like it forces a precision and clarity of your thoughts that speaking just lets you get away with, you know? And I often don't know what I think until like I write it down, right? So yeah, I'm a huge fan of writing, and we kind of want to move as much communication over to writing and asynchronous as possible. Just because it's so much more effective, it forces us to think more clearly, and then it also helps us to give more constructive feedback when you can, okay, I see exactly how you're reasoning about this. Here's where I think you might have went wrong, or like, this is a really great point. I didn't understand the reasoning behind this original thing, but now we just had that yesterday and now we're sharing it with our users too.
Yeah.
So we're like, people didn't really most people liked it, but there's a couple people who didn't really understand where we were going with community roles. So we just shared our JIP with them, and they're like, oh, like I didn't like this idea before, but now that I've read through like all the reasoning behind it and like how it's going to look and the long-term goals for it, like I'm totally on board with this, right? And it's kind of great in that perspective because it's extremely scalable. So if you think about like, if you, right, as the organization starts to grow, right now we're a founding team of 3 people, but like as we start to grow and like we hire more people, those people will come into the organization. I'm sure they'll have a lot of the ideas that we've already discussed. It'll be nice to have documents that we could just send to them like, oh, we already had this conversation, read this document.
100%.
Right?
No,
so
awesome.
it's very scalable.
That's awesome. Maybe you should take it in a slightly different direction. I think it's so unique that you work with your brother. How has kind of that been? You kind of touched upon it, and he was like the engineering side, and he pushed you and would give you honest feedback about like your code. But I just kind of think that's unique.
Yeah, no, it's honestly gone shockingly smoothly, right? Like we don't argue at all. I feel like we argued way more when we were kids, but no, we kind of. I think our skills are very complementary, which helps too. So we're not like fighting over technical decisions or stuff like that, right? Like he's a phenomenal engineer. So him and Grant kind of decide the direction to go on the tech perspective, right? Like I used to write like up until a month ago, I was writing like a ton of code, and I joke with him that we were like on par, but his code was better than mine. I would like change like the lock files, right? And, like 20,000 lines of code updated, right? So I joke that like I'm beating him. But no, Grant and Matt own the entire engineering process.
Nice.
And then I've shifted more to kind of like product, like talking to users and really sourcing ideas from users and public communication, and also go to market. So recruiting communities and getting them to onboard. And so it's been like an interesting shift. So it's kind of been good. And there's like a trust element. We trust that each other is competent.
Yeah.
And I think that really helps.
For sure.
Yeah. Nobody's like second guessing each other, or it's like, all right, like if you think that's really the best direction, like this is your area of responsibility, you go for it. So I think that it might be a little messier if we were both like working on the same exact thing.
Yeah.
But because we're kind of separating out our responsibilities, it works really well. Yeah, and it's kind of funny because we're not like, we don't really like, we're like super close, but we don't like, we didn't like text all the time, like growing up or what, like when we were in college. It was kind of like, I don't know, like we cared about each other, but we didn't, but we weren't texting with each other all the time. So it's kind of funny. But now we see each other every single day, and it's kind of funny, and that's awesome. It's great. Yeah.
That is awesome. My younger brother got me into crypto during the 2017 bull market. He was kind of sharing about all the crypto stuff that was happening. And now more recently, he's been much more into like the NFT side of things. And he's like, dude, check out this community. And it's been cool. We definitely chat a lot more as well, just about crypto and everything that's been going on. It's fun.
Yeah, no, that sounds awesome. And there's a certain directness that's nice, that like you could just be extremely direct with like your brother or your sibling. Sometimes it's a little confrontational, but like 99% of the time it's pretty good.
Yeah. No. Yeah. That's fun. How, I guess like, so how many, one of the things I've seen in crypto, I mean, everybody like obviously travels. How have you, just traveling yourself, kind of like seeing like crypto evolve, like during your tenure in crypto? And, have you like noticed like any different communities focusing on like different aspects?
I was at ETH Denver.
Okay. I was
in February. It was great. It was kind of mobbed. It was amazing how many people. I forget how many people, but I heard it was like somewhere in like the 10 to 15,000 range.
Okay.
So which is insane. Like apparently that's like more than double what it was the year before. So there's a ton of people. There's kind of like, it feels like it's really becoming more of an industry with all these different sectors, right? You have this NFT sector. You have right, you have the DeFi sector, you have the social sector, right? Like there's a ton of, and people are starting to focus now, and then you have people focused solely on scaling technology. It's really kind of amazing, right? So there's like talks that you could go to for pretty much whatever you're interested in.
Yeah.
And it feels, I don't know, it feels like there's almost like this inevitability about it in terms of like, oh, this is like gonna work.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel, I don't know. I personally felt up until like a couple of years ago, like I haven't been in it that long. I got in like 2018.
Okay. So after the bear market?
Yeah.
During the bear market?
No, I just got kind of lucky. Well, I got into it after, right, there's a massive crash, right? So Bitcoin went to like 19,000 and then it crashed all the way down to 3,500.
Yeah.
And I was looking at it in like March or April of 2018. And I was on tech Twitter because I liked tech stuff, not crypto stuff.
Yeah.
And I saw like a bunch of really, really smart people who I respected still tweeting about it. And I was like, okay, like these people like are devoting their careers to it. They're still their reputations to it. And even after it's down 90%, maybe there's something there. So I just ordered the best book. I Googled what's the best book on Bitcoin, right? And the Bitcoin Standard by Safedin Amos came up. And I just read that book and it kind of clicked from like I was working at a hedge fund at the time. So the macro elements of it kind of clicked. Why did the world converge on gold as a store of value? Why would the world converge on Bitcoin as a store of value? I was like, oh, this like is actually like super interesting. So I started buying Bitcoin and around then, and then Yeah, so I was in Bitcoin for like a while, probably like, so from 2018 to September of 2019, spring of 2018 to the fall of 2019, I only owned Bitcoin. And then a really smart friend started telling me about Ethereum, and I was like, I don't know, like store value use case. It's like a $400 trillion TAM. Like I feel like that's like the place you want to be. And he's like, no, just trust me. And I didn't get at the time, like, how does value accrue to the native asset? Like, won't people, like, if it's just open source software, won't people fork it, right? And like, are there really like kind of competitive advantages and staying power for these chains? And like, I didn't know which one was going to win. I thought it was comparable to the .com boom, where you have like proliferation of pets.com and whatever. It's probably still kind of like that. And then you'll have it shaken out, and then there will be a few Amazons that emerge from that. But then I was like, okay, I'll buy a little bit. So I start buying like a little bit. And then once you buy a little bit of something, you start reading so much more. You're so much more invested. And
like, is my bag going up or down? What did I buy?
I'm following news. I'm like, why did the price go down this week or whatever? And it started getting really interesting, where I started learning about EIP 1559 and the transition to proof of stake. And like, there's environmental benefits from that, but there's also kind of monetary benefits from that, which really started resonating with me. And when you have some really smart people like Justin Drake, the Ethereum researcher. Very smart. He put forth some really interesting ideas on, like, he has coined the term ultrasound money. And I started like looking at it, and he pointed out some of the vulnerabilities of like the Bitcoin security model, right? Where you kind of have this declining block subsidy, and like, if there's not enough transaction demand, like, you're going to have to pay for security at some point, right? So I was like, okay, like, Ethereum looks like it's going to be more scarce than Bitcoin, right? Like, if Bitcoin's disinflationary, and like ultimately in 2140 it will have a 0% inflation rate, it looks like Ethereum is going to go deflationary between, right? Like, if they're issuing only like 1% of the network.
It already has a couple times.
It's gone to deflate. So Ethereum is going to be deflationary, hence the term like ultrasound money. And then you have all this transaction demand on top of it, which is kind of like a crazy amount of security spent, right? And then with proof of stake, it seems like such a more efficient consensus mechanism, right? Because you don't have to waste all this energy, right? That goes to mining. And then as a result, it kind of, if like 10% of the network staking, there's always a security, like the cost to attack the network is always a 10th of the market cap of the network, right? So I was like, okay, so Ethereum is more scarce than Bitcoin. It's more secure. I think it's more secure than Bitcoin. I wrote a whole essay on this because like we were talking about before, you don't know these ideas until you write them down and like you point out the holes in your logic. And then the third thing was like, you have all this organic demand, where I kind of compared it to like the petrodollar, right? Where you, like, if you think about what happened with the petrodollars, people, right? Basically the US after Bretton Woods, after like Nixon turned his back on the gold standard, right? Like, how did you get the rest of the world to kind of converge on this worthless piece of paper as the global reserve asset? And what he did was the US offered Saudi Arabia protection to denominate oil in dollars. So if you wanted to buy oil, right, and like, even if you were just, right, like if you were Germany and had no relation to the US, you had to acquire dollars. So people started trading dollars, and that created all this demand for dollars, and the world converged on it as the reserve asset of the world. And I think like a similar dynamic could play out with Ethereum. It's hard to tell because there's all these other L1s, and like, you don't know which one's going to win. But like, I could see demand for kind of compute being like similar to like demand for trustless compute being like similar to demand for oil. And it causes everybody to kind of converge on it. It's like, oh, I need this for this. It's basically kind of gas to run decentralized infrastructure, right? So that's the third one. And then the fourth one is just yield, right? Like, proof of stake being a much more efficient consensus mechanism is if you're getting, right now it's like 4.8%, but after the merge, it'll probably be like, I'm seeing somewhere from like 10 to 12%, maybe even higher in real yield. So all things being equal, if you own Bitcoin, and you own Ethereum, right? And you thought that they're both going to appreciate 100% over the next 3 years.
Yeah.
If you get an extra
yield
5% on top of it, like being a perfectly rational actor, you would probably switch, overweight Ethereum a little bit more. And if enough people do that, then it could kind of become self-fulfilling, because the meme aspects of these are totally, I feel like they're totally unrelated. Like everything's a meme and kind of a Ponzi. so it was like those 4 reasons. And then I just converted all of my Bitcoin to ETH.
Huh. That's a cool story.
Yeah.
I feel like not very many people, I would say more so, I've found like the Bitcoin people more open-minded to other platforms, but there's still very much of large maxi camp. I got called a maxi the other day, and so I had to update my bio as multi-chain enjoyer. I was like, no, I like multiple chains. I have my preferences, but I would still say I'm a multi-chain enjoyer. No, that's super cool. That's wild. Cool, man. Well, maybe to kind of wrap it up, I'm being based in Miami. There's a pretty good growing tech scene, a lot of crypto founders. How is it here in like New York City?
Yeah. It's funny, like the people I hang out with are from Miami. And
they are in Miami?
Yeah. Okay. Well, they were in Miami with me, and then they also moved up here.
Okay.
So to be honest, I haven't like gone out that much. Like, so
no,
like,
I feel you.
I haven't like met a ton of people, but it seems like there are like a bunch of crypto people located here, especially on the investing side. Like there's a bunch of kind of crypto investors and funds that are located in New York. But yeah, I personally, I don't know. Miami is interesting because there's so many people looking to meet other people there, right? Like, so people, everybody has moved in there in like the last 12 months, and everybody's looking to meet new people. So it's been, so people are open to making new friends. And that was great because I just moved down there in May of last year. And
that was early.
Yeah, that was pretty early. Yeah.
Because I moved in August.
Yeah. But like, right, like we ran into each other. It's like, oh, we just like crypto. So we're friends now. Yeah. So that doesn't happen as much as in New York. But I feel like it's here if you suss it out and you kind of go and like go to meetups and stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, no, I mean, just the event that I came to here, I've been impressed by like the number of engineers and at least some of the communities that I've met. And it's been super cool.
Especially in Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn's really taking off as a crypto hub. I haven't made it out to like Brooklyn that much.
Yeah.
But I hear it's really great.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Well, I'll have to come back maybe when New York's a little bit warmer. Yeah. I've been bundled up from my Miami blood is a little bit too thin for this New York. But it's been nice overall. Cool, man. Well, thank you again. Where can like people find what you're building? Where can people find you on Twitter? How can they reach out to you?
Yeah, so I'm fonz.eth on GM.xyz.
Okay.
So go there, create an account, sign in with your wallet. And then I am Mike McG0, MIKEMCG0 on Twitter.
Cool.
Yeah, and I tweet out mostly stuff about GM now, but like sometimes I'll tweet out like crypto takes too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'll add both of those in the bio.
The show notes?
In the show notes.
Yeah, that sounds great. Awesome.
Cool.
Thank you for having me. This is really great.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate it, man.
Yeah.
Thank you.